NFL salary exploitation for week 11. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is a very
Disheveled. Say disheveled.
disheveled Russell
Disheveled.
Clay.
Look at my hair. My hair's always bad, but especially today. Yes, I'm very tired. I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but you have to get up early for something and then you just don't care. And then you just stay up late anyway. And then, that's just how things go sometimes. So we're powering through this. We're gonna blast through the finish line like Deshaun Jackson when he fumbled the ball at the one as he dove in. You know what
That's
I'm
a pretty
talking
good
about?
analogy of how our pods usually go.
Yeah.
We get there and then that's it.
No, see, we get there with the pods and then it's the lineup construction. That's we leave the ball at the one on the lineup construction. Or at least I have on DraftKings the last few weeks.
I think we can jump in here to quarterbacks. And dear God, are we going down this road again?
Yep.
The Bortles road.
Detroit secondary is trash. Burning hot garbage, not even cold garbage. Like not New York City, like newspapers flapping on the ground. We're talking about like on fire garbage cans, just in the streets. Homeless
So
people.
like Trump rally.
Yeah, like
you know.
homeless people warming themselves, and then someone grabs the homeless person and throws them into the fire, and then it's burning homeless people trash. That's what the Lions are.
This took a dark turn.
Yeah. So, Blake Bortles, I'll mention one of his receivers in a bit, but obviously the combination of Allen Robinson and him work in the last few weeks, and I think you can fire away with that again. I mean, especially on DraftKings, FanDuel, that Russell Wilson price tag that we're going to talk about in a sec is too close for me to jump to Bortles, but especially on DK, that 700 difference is a big deal.
I mean, the last few weeks we've been using, a cheap AFC South quarterback for quite some time, Marcus Mariota. He's bumped up this week on both sites. So now, if you want to stick in that range, Bortles 5,400 isn't a good spot. And here's to hoping that he gets that garbage time that he really needs.
Yeah, he needs and we need, and I just think he's not a good quarterback, but who cares?
Russell Wilson, who's actually a good quarterback, not really priced like one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, over the last few weeks, we've seen that, been a little bit banged up, but pretty clear last night he's back.
I'm surprised at how low the ownership was of him yesterday across all sites. I was really shocked by that. And I'm not bragging, but I figured he would have at least 10%. Against the New England defense. I sort of see a similar situation here where, I mean, obviously I don't think Russell Wilson's going to, go for 25 guaranteed points, but Philly's not that good away from home, especially defensively. So, Russell Wilson was back 2 weeks ago. I thought that was enough to say, all right, Russell Wilson's back. He's definitely back now. You might get one more week of mediocre ownership before, these prices are just way too low for Russell Wilson.
And I think kind of the illusion of Philly's defense being elite. I don't know.
Home. They're good at home.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
They're good at home. They shut down the Steelers at home. They did pretty well last week. I don't know. I just look at Russell Wilson like he was never bad. Like his results were bad because of his ankle, but it's not like he was ever bad. There was no stretch in time where Russell Wilson was ever a bad quarterback. It's just his ankle was screwed up so he couldn't run. Now he's got that mobility back, and I mean, he's the same guy. It's just he can push off his throws, and you're starting to see that efficiency per throw come back, especially to Doug Baldwin. Obviously, Paul Richardson had 2 catches for 50 yards. Tyler Lockett getting deep deep targets. I mean, that efficiency is there. You can see it. I mean, this is kind of similar to what happened last year. Obviously, different scenario, but Wilson didn't light it up the first half of the season, and then him and Doug Baldwin just went on that unreal tear where, I mean, it's starting again. 3 touchdowns last night for Baldwin. So, I think Wilson, I think that whole offense, and I guess we'll get into CJ Procise here. 4,200 on DK. We don't even really need to talk about it. Just 4,200 on DK. Dude's getting 70% of the snaps. Christian Michael not a part of anything. Really pass heavy team now. No offensive line. CJ Procise show.
I think the one thing that shocked me last night was the fact that he had 17 rushing attempts. That I didn't see coming.
That's how they talked about him this summer. I mean, that's what he profiles as. I see a lot of people talking about him as almost like a scat back, and it's so bizarre to me. He's 220 pounds. I mean, I know, I get that he's not like perfect between the tackles right now, but he's not a small guy, And I mean, you watched Notre Dame. You obviously saw he's a converted wide receiver. He's a big dude. Like, I know he's good at receiving the ball, but he's a big dude as well. So I don't know.
I like him a lot. I think he's a great player. I know you and we talked about him a little bit during the offseason. I mean, one, because I knew about him quite a bit because of Notre Dame, but you houndlessly just stay up nights and nights just looking at college football stuff. So, you obviously knew about him, and here he is finally getting a show to do what he can do in a pretty good spot, because I think the way they run that offense, there probably isn't a better landing spot than where he went.
Absolutely. And you just look at the floor for 4,200. I mean, obviously he doesn't have 30-point upside, but he does have 20. We saw it last game. He's going to get those receptions, going to make his floor super high going forward. We'll see what happens when Rawls gets back, but right now I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, he had, about 44% of the touches last time, so in terms of his snaps, so he was very solid. James Starks came in, and it seemed to be bye-bye Ty Montgomery. It was a bit sad.
No, it's not at all.
I'm sad.
And Procise 4,900 on FanDuel. I mean, that's cash, right?
I mean, if you want to open up to get some exposure at wide receiver and really pay up for quarterbacks, Delaney Walker, I mean, you're going to probably need to look and go down, especially because not everyone's in a perfect spot up top.
Definitely. But yeah, back to Starks. I mean, he's not a great play, but I don't think we can look at the Titans game as indicative of any type of game flow we're going to see going forward. That was just I've never used the words blitzkrieg before, but I think that's the correct usage to describe what happened yesterday in Tennessee. It's just gross for the Packers defense. Starks receiving down back as well. He's really the only running back there that's competent, clearly healthy now. So yeah, on both sides, I'm cool with him in tournaments.
So, I think the world's just been completely turned upside down.
What do you mean?
We got Trump president. Aaron Rodgers can't win a damn game. Offense looks mediocre at times. I mean, you take away his garbage time, and he's having a really mediocre year.
Hey, yeah, but we don't take away his garbage time, and he's the number one fantasy quarterback right now, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. He's,
Yes.
Hot take. I mean, he might be just Blake Bortles plus at this point.
Hot take. He's going to throw for 45 touchdowns, and people are going to crap all over him. I mean, he's certainly not vintage Rodgers right now, but I just love the fact that he's on pace for 40 to 45 touchdowns, and it's just an awful year for him. You know what I mean? Like he's been one
of the most consistent DFS quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. Yeah. I mean, he's been fine. He really has.
But from a real football perspective, it is weird to see him struggling. It is a struggle out there. And, he's got Jordy, but they don't have any deep targets still. So certainly something to watch going forward. I still love Devontae Adams, Jordy, and I think you can throw Starks in there as well.
Yeah, I do too. I like him this week. Transitioning
No, I like
into
I like the first pronunciation.
into wide receiver.
Transitioning. What'd you say?
I'm not going to try and recreate that segment. We're
Okay.
going to look at wide receivers.
Okay.
Marquise Lee,
Yep.
you're looking at a kind of pair up with Bortles. Obviously, has seen a bigger role in the offense over the last few weeks, and cheap across the board.
Yeah, I tweeted it out today. Marquise Lee, year 3, on pace for 68 receptions and 850 yards. So pretty solid year for him. I know that only comes out to 9 fantasy points a game, but at 4K on DraftKings, at 4,800 on FanDuel, at 7,800 on FantasyDraft, one of these weeks is going to get a touchdown here, and it's really going to be a boost to his value, and he's going to hit that 15 points or so. So against this Detroit secondary, I think this is a great week to bet on that. Obviously mistake prone secondary. Marquise Lee, an after the catch type player. We saw that a few weeks ago against the Chiefs. I think this is an interesting play where he could break a big one. This is one where his punt return skills can really flourish. So I like this.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think, you look at Darius Slay and whoever he's on, it always kind of shifts a little bit more focus for me towards other receivers, which in this case would likely be Marquise Lee. And I think in terms of DraftKings, I mean, it seems much more this year that we've been diving down into this type of range to try and fit those guys that we really want to get in, like Bell this week against Cleveland. I mean, you're going to need some dive down value to kind of complete that, to really round out a lineup. And I think Lee's a good way to kind of get exposure and do that.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, running back renaissance, not like anybody saw that coming at all. It's strange how random that is. I will say, if Jeremy Macklin's out again, I didn't put Tyreek Hill in here, but obviously you're playing him at his price if Macklin's out again. I don't even remember what his price is, but you're firing away over Eli Rogers, over Marquise Lee. He's good. And I don't know what his role is eventually going to grow into, but he's sick athleticism for a smaller receiver. And I think, just kind of evaluating him as a player, if he's getting 10 targets a game, there's going to be some big weeks because he can break tons of big plays.
I mean, I think, and also with the news of Alshon Jeffrey that was just what happened before we hopped on.
Cameron Meredith, yeah.
He's done. Yeah, here we go. I mean, Cameron Meredith show again.
Maybe they'll scrape Kevin White off the IR in a few weeks and he'll come back. But that's
I honestly forgot all about him.
Yeah, it's sad. I haven't. All my shares in dynasty leagues. Sad. Back to Eli Rogers though. Obviously touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. Against this Cleveland secondary, I mean, obviously Antonio Brown's going to get his, but he's a great guy to get. If you're doing that Pittsburgh stack, he could be the fourth guy in the onslaught there.
I think so. I mean, Justin was talking about him this week as a value play, and I was a little bit hesitant on it. I wasn't expecting a ton of production out of him, but I was quite surprised with what I saw in the way they were using him in terms of check down. I mean, Rodgers was the guy really outside of Bell in those short screen passes to Brown.
Well, they're using Kobe Hamilton. Obviously Darius Hayward-Bay is out. Him and Sammy Coates are pretty similar. Like Kobe Hamilton's not the same type of athlete, but they're not slot guys. And without Wheaton, really it's just Rodgers, and Antonio Brown, but Brown's obviously all over the place. So Eli Rogers, that nice consistent slot guy. They got Jesse James a little bit into the mix as well. That's kind of worrisome. And Ladarius Green is back. So this could be a fleeting type of usage in terms of targets per week. But I do like Eli Rogers against this Cleveland secondary at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, who don't you like against Cleveland at this point?
I know, it's so sad. It really is so sad.
Let's talk about this stud. Let's talk about Dante Moncrief.
Okay. I mean, this is the one Uh, we have Russell Wilson, Procise, and Moncrief, and Delaney Walker. Those are like the four guys that are actually good in this little article here. So Moncrief, I mean, that Packers game was really bizarre how it shook out. Game flow was not in favor of anyone, really. There was nobody it was in favor of.
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore, yeah. Frank Gore, yeah. Great. Frank Gore, 47-year-old. I was talking to my buddy about Darren Sproles the other day, and it just makes me angry. Like, why didn't... Stop, Darren Sproles. Please stop. Go away. You're 33 years old. You're not supposed to be good at football anymore, and you just watch him. He's still amazing. And it's like Frank Gore is still amazing. It's like, stop. Move over.
Here I am, 25 years old, and my back's killing me in this chair. I can barely get up from here to the kitchen in a moderate time.
And Frank Gore is just a battering ram, just drilling his head into defensive linemen. But anyway, Andrew Luck, this Titans-Colts game should be bonkers. Luck, Hilton, Moncrief, Delaney Walker in a lineup is firing away with me. Add DeMarco Murray and, game stack. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're in on that game, you just get as much correlation as you can. I just think Moncrief, Tennessee's not a bad secondary, but last time they played, Andrew Luck was in complete control, and he was just slicing and dicing. And Tennessee obviously didn't look that great against Green Bay either. So I think, the wheels are starting to come off defensively for them, and you can just fire away with Moncrief and Cash.
I think they're just finally playing good passing teams.
That could be it as well. I think we're seeing a lot of that this time of year where teams either are exposed or they're coming around. But yeah, like you mentioned.
I mean, Rivers torched them. Obviously, you look at what Rodgers did, wasn't efficient, but still, I think that has more to do with what the Packers offense is right now. And then you look at Luck, all of his weapons back at home. I wouldn't be surprised to see them as one of the higher totals, of the slate come, whenever it is tomorrow.
Yeah. And so for tight ends, I guess we'll just get right into another player I'm looking at, Dwayne Allen. This is more of just a punt play, and after last week with Lance Kendricks, I just don't know that I want to do that again for a little while. I want to, let things settle over there in St. Louis and see what's going on with his role this week. I mean,
this year.
Yeah. That was surprising. Like the lack of them going to him. I just thought that was a little bizarre. But, with that, with Jack Doyle kind of, he's in play, but I just like the price of Dwayne Allen better, especially compared to a lot of the guys in that range on DK. On FanDuel, I don't need to do that. But FantasyDraft and DraftKings, I'm in on Dwayne Allen this week as sort of a tournament punt.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think DraftKings at 2,900 is just kind of the reasonable punt option down there. While, yes, Indy's, offense is always super spread out in terms of where the touchdown production comes from. I mean, we haven't really seen, Jack Doyle go away either. So there's just a lot of options out there.
Yeah.
In that same game, though, I mean, you want to play it safe and you want to pay up a little bit. It's easily Delaney Walker in this matchup.
Yeah, and I put him as exploitation because, on DraftKings, he's not too expensive on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings, you can put him in the flex. And I just think a guy like him at 5,700, I mean, if he were a wide receiver doing what he's doing, he'd be 7K. He'd be in that Terrell Pryor range with his production. I mean, Delaney Walker's really crushed it 2 of the last 3 weeks. This offense is rolling. They're playing the Colts. Colts have looked a little better against the run, but the pass is still a big weakness, especially in the interior. I just think this is easy money. 6,400 on FanDuel. He's probably not going to do what he did last week again, but if he gets you 12 points, 10 points, 80, 90 yards and 6 catches, I mean, you're cool with that,
Yeah, I think so. And you look at that game, I mean, it's not too expensive. I mean, outside of really Murray and Hilton and the quarterbacks, obviously Mariota's prices come up, but you plug in like Moncrief and Delaney, I mean, 6,400 on FanDuel, reasonable prices to get exposure to probably one of the higher scoring games of the week.
Yeah, and you can play it that way, or I mean, you can go Luck, Hilton, Moncrief, and then go Delaney to get that correlation. I think that's a really smart move. But just generally speaking, it's tough to trust tight ends right now. It really is. I kind of, I joke around about the running backs, but I kind of saw the tight ends going in a positive direction as well, and it's gone the direct opposite way. I mean, it's good we're getting Eric Ebron and Zach Ertz back, but this is pretty gross.
Yeah, man, especially for the bigger guys. I mean, we've seen a couple of big games out of Jimmy Graham, but I mean, Jordan Reed, I don't think he's been at over double digit, fantasy points, and
Yeah.
I think he's only been over that twice this year, actually. I mean, we saw Vernon Davis obviously last week. That was frustrating. So,
Yeah, super, super duper frustrating. But and obviously Lance Kendricks, you mentioned Gronk, Graham, and Reed all didn't go over 10, fantasy points. So it's pretty rough week.
yeah, it was definitely a week to dive down, and that could be kind of the safer way to go about it for the rest of the year because of kind of the craziness that has been, maybe a lack of production that we've seen over the last few years.
Certainly.
Defenses here, you picked a couple of cheap ones. Rams, home matchup against the Dolphins. This Rams defense has been, the reason why they're not 0-9, 0-10.
I mean, for real though. I mean, this team would literally be winless if they had an average defense. Obviously, they get put in bad positions a lot because of their offense, but I love these types of games where Dolphins coming off potentially their best performance of the year. Obviously, Jay Ajayi, got nicked up, but has been playing amazing. I wouldn't doubt that. I think this is a very intriguing matchup from an upside standpoint. Rams defense has been playing really well. They're at home. They're only 3,100 on DK, 4,700 on FanDuel. You're getting a nice discount on a team that's, been pretty rock steady this year in terms of floor. They haven't had those huge upside games, but in terms of getting to the quarterback, that's always going to be something they're good at. Other than a Jay Ajayi explosion, which I'm not counting out, Rams are very inconsistent at blocking the run. So that's certainly something to evaluate. They're more of a tournament defense, but I do think it's intriguing.
On this next one here, I mean, you're going to have to sell me on this one.
Okay.
I'm coming in to buy a car, and you're trying to sell me the Bears. All right. Fire away, sir.
Wait, I'm Googling Eli Manning right now. Yeah, look at that picture. I mean,
I'm not doing it based.
I'm can we screen share my screen and I'll just show you a picture of Eli Manning?
Do that?
No. So we haven't seen the Monday night game yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be a high scoring game. If it's not, then maybe I'll change my take. But I assume Eli Manning's going to do well in this game. If he does, I think you're going to get super low ownership on this Bears defense. They've been good. I know they gave up points last week to the Buccaneers, but it was like kind of fluky production.
They held Mike Evans in check. That's a win.
Yeah, they held Mike Evans in check. The running game did not get going. It was really weird production. I mean, if you saw the Jameis Winston pass to Mike Evans, literally his only good play of the game, it was just an incredible play by Jameis Winston. I mean, he was deaking and duking and running around in circles, and I could not believe he got the ball off. And then, obviously good things happen there when you get it to Mike Evans. But, Eddie Goldman, Leonard Floyd, and a few other guys in that front seven for the Bears are actually pretty good. And, They shut down the Packers, obviously shut down a weak Vikings defense or offense. And I think this Eli Manning, he has random bad games. And I think if you're looking to get a really cheap defense, I mean, 4,100 and 2,500, we're looking at the mins here. You know what I mean? If they can get you 5 to 7 points, you're happy. And they've been getting enough pressure and enough sacks of late that, even if they give up 21 points, they're still getting you in that, 5-point range, which I think is acceptable for that price.
I mean, this week we saw a lot of people actually roll out cheap defenses. I think the Jags were one of the more popular punt defenses, and even the Bears, that people use. And it was a strategy where that 800 or whatever difference from, Kansas City or whoever they used or Arizona came into play. I mean, that was a difference between maybe a Melvin Gordon and someone else, or, that type of kind of production in terms of lineup construction. I mean, punting defense has always been a viable GPP strategy.
And you've certainly heard my tune change after the first few weeks, because I was all in on, Denver and
plug in Minnesota and
plug in Minnesota. But these defenses are failing. Like, they failed me multiple weeks in a row. And it just seems to be still trending in that direction where there's a lot of volatile defenses. Actually, my favorite right now is the Ravens, but they keep matching up against some pretty good, offenses other than the Browns. But they're really the team I'm looking at. Other than that, I don't trust anyone. So that's kind of where these came from.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this week, Minnesota's defense, what do we get out of them? I think Kansas City's probably the safest pay-up option out of most this week. So I think in terms of a pay-up defense. But yeah, I think, we're certainly going to be looking at some bargain bin defenses.
Definitely.
So any parting words? I mean, this was a long one. I'm tired.
I'm tired.
Not as tired as you.
I'm tired, but this stuff keeps me up at night. I'm just panicked. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Rams or Bears? And and that's why I don't get much sleep at night. So
yeah, Lance Kendricks. How many targets did he have yesterday?
2.
Yeah,
2 big ones.
That's what kept you up at night.
Oh, what's a cadaver?
I don't know.
Oh, well, that's a good trivia question. We should have a trivia question at the end of every show.
Oh, there we go. For those who actually stay towards the end. Yeah.
All right, fans. If you can tell me what a cadaver is, then you win nothing. And I'll actually probably like you less because you actually know what it means. But if you do, put it in the comments.
Yes, please. Please do that. That's going to wrap things up for this week's Salary Exploitation, Week 11. Be sure to head on over to dailyfantasycafe.com. Check out our great tools and content. We also have NBA and NHL optimizers up and running for the season. That's something that we've been working on the last few weeks. It's finally up. And if you like what we're doing on these podcasts, be sure to give us a subscribe and throw us a thumbs up as well.